The millionaire expected nothing more than an awkward reunion with his ex, but she walked in holding two identical little boys, carrying in her eyes the truths he never had the courage to face. But before you hear the full story, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Now subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let's begin. The smell of crisp bacon, eggs, and freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air as Nina Hayes balanced 3 plates on her forearm, weaving through the narrow hallway of the Cedar and Pine Diner in downtown Denver. At 4 in the afternoon, the restaurant was already buzzing with end-of-shift workers, hungry tourists, and students in a rush. It was Friday, the most chaotic day of the week. "You're moving even faster than usual today, Nina," Mr. Dawson, an elderly accountant who ate there nearly every day, commented as she set his turkey sandwich with melted cheddar in front of him. "Fridays show no mercy," she replied, adjusting his napkin with practiced ease. "But you already know that better than anyone." "Oh, sweetheart," he smiled, eyes warm. "One day life is still going to put you in one of those offices. I'm sure of it." Nina smiled back, even as her legs throbbed. "With my college workload, only if I learn how to live without sleeping." "Business major, right?" he asked. "Part-time," Nina confirmed, "but sometimes it feels full-time." Mr. Dawson chuckled softly while she headed to another table, her apron swaying, her thoughts already on the next order. At 24, Nina felt the weight of every day: work, study, pay rent, repeat. But it was what she had, and she held on tightly. When the clock hit 5:30 p.m., her shift finally ended. Nina clocked out, tucked away her tips, $65 that day, and pushed through the glass doors, feeling the October chill slide across her skin. The bus stop was crowded. Exhausted workers packed the sidewalk, backpacks heavy, eyes tired. Nina boarded the bus 15 minutes later, squeezing between a mother with 2 restless kids and a man in a suit talking loudly on the phone. The noise, the pushing, the uneven sway, none of it was new. She opened her folder and pulled out her spiral business notebook. Her eyes burned, but she forced herself to focus, jotting down notes for the next day's class. Sleep would come later. Maybe. Nearly an hour later, Nina stepped off in the modest neighborhood where she lived. She climbed the stairs of the old building, unlocked the door, and was greeted by loud music and laughter. "Nina!" Tasha, her roommate, shouted, holding a makeup brush like a microphone. "We're going out, get ready." "Not tonight," Nina replied, lifting her backpack. "I have college work and an early shift tomorrow." "Oh, come on," Bree, the other roommate, complained as she walked through the living room with wet hair and a robe. "You need to live a little." "I do live." Nina gave a tired smile. "Just not today." Both girls rolled their eyes affectionately, but didn't push further. Nina crossed the living room to her bedroom, the former dining area separated by a thin curtain. She settled at the small table, turned on the desk lamp, and spread out her business textbooks, spreadsheets, and reports. The music outside tried to distract her, but Nina had long mastered the art of studying in chaos. It was this or give up, and giving up had never been an option. On Saturday, Nina arrived at the diner 15 minutes early, as she always did when she needed to review material for her afternoon class. She opened her notebook on the empty counter, scribbling formulas, profit margins, and market projections. The quiet morning didn't last. At 8 sharp, the restaurant began to fill. Saturdays brought in a different crowd, louder, more demanding, and generally worse tippers. Nina was refilling water at table 5 when the doorbell chimed. She didn't look up until she did, and her breath caught for a moment. A man walked in. First she noticed the grey wool coat, then the slightly tousled dark hair. But it was the eyes, blue-grey, focused, disarmingly calm, that froze her. He moved with a confident ease, choosing a table near the window. He set his coat on the chair, opened a slim laptop, and began typing as if the world around him didn't exist. Nina tried, really tried, not to stare, but she failed. There was something about him, something quiet, almost dangerously elegant, the kind of man whose world stayed perfectly organized around him, the kind of man who would never walk into a place like this by mistake. But he had, and she would have to take his order. She drew a long breath, adjusted her apron, and approached his table with her professional smile. "Good morning. Would you like a menu, or do you want to order right away?" He lifted his eyes, and the impact was instant, as if he were studying her, trying to understand who she was before she said anything. "A double Americano, please," he said, his deep voice slicing clean through the air. "No sugar." "Of course," Nina replied, steady. I'll be right back. She turned, but again his voice reached her. Your name? She hesitated for half a second. Nina. Nina Hayes. He nodded slowly, as if etching the name into memory. Maxwell Rochford. When he said the last name, something flickered in her mind. Rochford. She'd seen it in newspapers, maybe on TV, but the memory slipped away before she could catch it. Nina brought the coffee a few minutes later. Maxwell closed the laptop, a surprise to her. Have you worked here long? He asked. About 4 years, she answered. And do you like it? She let out a small laugh. I like what it represents. It's work, it's effort, it's real life. His eyes followed her with unusual attentiveness. And what do you really want to do? The question struck deep. Nina inhaled slowly. I want to finish my business degree, but she lifted a shoulder. Balancing everything isn't always easy. I understand, he said, but he didn't say how. There was something about him that made it obvious. He always managed to balance everything, or almost everything. Business is a complex major, Maxwell noted, glancing at the notebook she had left open on the counter. Especially corporate finance. The numbers scare a lot of people. Nina lifted her chin. The hard part isn't the numbers, she said calmly. The hard part is turning numbers into smart decisions. Ah, he smiled slightly. So you understand strategy. I try, she smiled, confident. Most companies don't suffer from lack of data. They suffer from lack of courage to interpret the data honestly. Something shifted in his expression. A spark, real interest. A flicker she didn't expect. Most people just repeat what they hear, he said. You don't. Heat rose through her chest. Maxwell Rochford was impressed, and she knew without understanding why that this was rare. He finished his coffee slowly, paid the bill, left a tip far too generous, put on his coat, walked to the door, and before leaving, he turned. Just 1 second, one look that clung to her, as if saying, this isn't over. Nina stood still, heart pounding. She never imagined that that customer, that look, that man, would change everything. But fate was already moving, and Maxwell Rochford would come back. Saturday unfolded like a predictable whirlwind at the Cedar and Pine Diner, but Nina couldn't get Maxwell Rochford out of her mind. Even as she served tables, balanced heavy plates, and moved through the scent of strong coffee and melted butter soaked into the walls, the memory of him returned. The blue-gray gaze, steady and silent, that seemed to see more than it should. But Maxwell didn't come back that day, not on Sunday either. And Nina, for reasons she would never admit out loud, felt a strange emptiness because of it, as if a conversation had been interrupted, and she was waiting for the next chapter without noticing. On Sunday, Nina worked the morning shift. It was calmer, families with restless children, tired couples returning from mountain hikes around Denver, tourists with cameras hanging from their necks. Hayes, did you drink 4 coffees or are you nervous? Melanie, another waitress, asked as she refilled cups at the counter. Nina looked away, feeling her face heat. I am not nervous, Nina replied too quickly. I bet it's because of Mr. Hypnotic Eyes. Mel, please. Ow, come on, Hayes, her friend teased, bumping her lightly with her hip. He was devouring you with his eyes, and everyone saw it. Nina let out a short laugh, more to relieve tension than because she found it funny. He just ordered a coffee. She took a breath and said a few things about business. Melanie laughed, resting her chin in her hand. Right. Mel, it's nothing. I'm just tired. Nina adjusted her apron and turned toward another table. And you know college is killing me. I have a huge assignment due tomorrow. Uh-huh. College. And I'm the Queen of England. That man looked at you like he'd just found the next star of his world. Melanie waved her hand dramatically, eyes sparkling with mischief. Nina nearly tripped. He only asked about my major, she insisted. And he left almost $20 in tips on a $6 coffee, Melanie shot back. Hayes, that's practically a marriage proposal in broke people currency. Nina shook her head, but the memory of Maxwell, hovering like a soft shadow behind every conversation, stayed with her all day. On Monday, after her college classes, Nina spent hours in the library studying. The tall windows let in golden light that spilled over the pages of her managerial accounting book, warm patches touching her skin. She read, underlined, took notes, and every time she paused, resting her chin on her hand or rubbing her tired eyes, his image surfaced. The attentive gaze, the impeccable posture, the direct questions, the silence charged with intention. It was infuriating and intriguing. That night, she took the bus home, packed with exhausted workers. The smell of jackets damp from the cold filled the air. Nina held tightly to the metal bar as the city passed quickly through the window. Bright signs, low buildings, people crossing the streets with coats pulled up to their chins. When she arrived home, her roommates were watching a show in the living room. "Want to watch with us?" Tasha asked, eating popcorn. "It's that Korean drama where the girl falls in love with her handsome boss." "I'm living that already," Bree muttered, laughing. "Literally." Nina tossed her keys on the table. "I am not in love with anyone." Her two roommates exchanged a look, the kind people give a bird trying to convince the world it can't fly. "When you deny it too much," Tasha said, "it's because you already fell." "You two are unbearable," Nina sighed, though her eyes were smiling. She slipped into her improvised bedroom, turned on the lamp and returned to her assignment. She studied until her eyes burned, until the shadows grew longer than her willpower. And despite everything, Maxwell was still there, as if he had left a mark in the air. 2 days later, on Tuesday, the weather was colder. Nina arrived early at the diner, as always. Sometimes she enjoyed the silence before the storm, the hum of the refrigerators, the faint buzz of neon, the smell of coffee, still too mild, like the restaurant was just beginning to wake. She was restocking napkins at table 3 when the bell rang. Nina didn't look up right away. She was too focused on aligning the sugar packets, but something, instinct, coincidence, fate, made her raise her eyes. And there he was, Maxwell Rochford, walking through the door with the same impeccable posture, the same elegant quiet, the same presence of someone who had never needed to share space with the world to exist. But something was different that morning. His clothes, a light blue shirt, dark open coat, silver watch, looked more casual, not sloppy, but less sharp than before, as if he were trying not to attract attention, trying and failing. He walked to the same table, but this time looked around calmly. His eyes found hers and something happened. Nina felt a chill run down her neck, a familiar one, recognition. Maxwell didn't smile, but his eyes softened just a little, as if saying, "I came back." She took a breath and approached him. "Good morning," Nina said, trying to keep her voice professional. "Here for another coffee?" "For another conversation," Maxwell replied, without breaking eye contact. "And maybe another double Americano, if you're willing to make it." "Of course," she said. "I'll be right back." He watched her walk to the counter, his gaze following each movement, not with hunger but with attention. Nina felt it. She really felt it. She grabbed the cup, the filter, turned on the machine. The strong smell of coffee rose with the heat of the steam, and even with the chaos growing around the diner, she realized she was trembling. When she returned with the coffee, Maxwell closed his laptop, the same slow, precise movement as their first encounter. "I have more questions," he said, resting his elbow on the table. "If you have time." Nina blinked, surprised, but something inside her opened. "Ask," she said. Maxwell leaned forward slightly. "In the last 2 days," he began with disarming honesty, "I've found myself thinking about you more than I should." Her heart stumbled. "Thinking about what exactly?" He inhaled slowly. "The way you see the world." A pause. "And the way you made me realize I might be missing something." Nina lost her breath for a moment. "And what do you think you're missing?" His eyes narrowed slightly, as if the question hit a place he hadn't touched in a long time. "Maybe," Maxwell searched for the words with rare sincerity for someone so controlled, "something I can't buy." Nina's legs nearly gave out. Silence. A silence that said more than any long sentence. But destiny, always cruel and always wise, decided not to leave them alone for long. The diner door opened again. A large group walked in, demanding immediate attention. Nina blinked, returning to the real world. "I need to..." She gestured toward the full tables. "Work calls." Maxwell nodded. "I'll wait." And he waited. For half an hour, maybe more. He watched her serve table after table, smile with kindness, balance trays with mastery, handle orders, apologies, complaints. He watched every movement, every detail of the woman who, without knowing it, was beginning to destabilize his entire world. When she finally returned, drying her hands on her apron, Maxwell straightened slightly. "I didn't want to interrupt your shift," he said. "I just wanted to hear you again." Nina held her breath without noticing. "Why?" Maxwell answered with devastating simplicity. "Because I haven't been able to get you out of my mind." The world seemed to quiet for a second, and Nina knew, deeply knew, that this wouldn't be just another conversation. It was the beginning of something neither of them expected. The cold Tuesday morning wind slipped through the diner's window, carrying with it the smell of damp asphalt and dry leaves. Nina was straightening the sugar packets on table 3 when the door chime rang, the soft sound that marked every arrival at the restaurant. She didn't look up right away. She was too focused on trying to balance her thoughts with the bills she was mentally organizing, but something, a subtle shift in the air, made her lift her eyes. And there he was, again. Maxwell in a dark coat, light blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up in a carelessly elegant way, his dark hair brushed back with a few rebellious strands, falling exactly where they made his angular face more handsome. 2 days. 2 days without seeing him. 2 days trying to convince herself he wouldn't come back. But he did. This time, Maxwell looked human, less protected by the invisible armor he'd worn the first time. There was a faint shadow beneath his eyes, maybe exhaustion, maybe restlessness, that made everything more real and dangerously more attractive. He walked to the same table by the window, sat down slowly, setting his coat on the back of the chair, and then his eyes found hers. Nina felt her breath slip away. There was no way to avoid it. She had to serve him. Walking toward him, Nina tried to hold on to her professionalism. "Good morning," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Can I bring you a menu, or would you like the usual?" Maxwell lifted his gaze, and the corner of his mouth tugged up slightly. "Double Americano," he replied, "and maybe a few more minutes of your attention, if that's not asking too much." Her heart jumped and she quickly smothered it. "I'll go make your coffee," she said, trying to escape before something visible gave away her nerves. But Maxwell didn't let her go that easily. "Nina," he called, gentle, almost in a whisper. She turned. "I'm glad you're here today." She drew in a breath, surprised by the soft weight of those words. "It's my shift," she answered, almost laughing at herself. "I'm always here." "Good," he said, and dropped his gaze to his hands, as if he'd said more than he meant to. At the counter, Melanie came over, eyes sparkling. "He's back," she nudged Nina with her elbow. "And look at his face. He's not here for the coffee haze. Mel, and don't even try to deny it. He's looking at you like you're the only interesting chapter in the book he's living." Nina huffed but didn't argue, because part of her knew. The coffee machine released a burst of steam that wrapped Nina in a warm, familiar aroma. She prepared the drink with steady hands, trying to ignore her own reflection trembling in the stainless steel of the machine. Calm face on the outside, absolute chaos on the inside. When she returned to the table, she set the cup down carefully. "Thank you," Maxwell said, wrapping long, elegant fingers around the rim of the cup. "I needed this." "Rough day?" Nina asked. Maxwell laughed, but it was a low, humorless sound. "Rough week," he corrected. "Executive internship at my parents' company's Denver branch. Too many meetings, too many expectations, too many people waiting for me to be someone I'm not even sure I am yet." Nina sat at the next table, spinning her order pad between her fingers. "So you're in your second to last year of college, right?" His eyes lifted, surprised. "How? You said you're rethinking things, and the way you talk about important decisions." She shrugged. "That's not the voice of someone at the beginning of adulthood. It's the voice of someone in the middle of it." His gaze grew warm, not in a sexual way, but impressed. "Wharton," Maxwell said at last. "Business and international relations." "Wow," Nina murmured. "That's intense." "It is," he agreed. "It's a program for people who are destined to," a long pause, "take over something far too big." There was weight behind those words. Old weight, familiar weight. "Your parents' company?" Nina asked gently. Maxwell hesitated, then nodded. "Rochford Global Technologies." Nina froze. The cup she was holding almost slipped. "The AI and digital security company, the one that has contracts with banks and governments." "That's the one." She thought she would be impressed, but what she felt was compassion. "That must be a lot of pressure," she said sincerely. Maxwell exhaled slowly, as if someone had finally found the right key. "It is." He rested his elbows on the table. "My whole life has been mapped out since before I learned how to tie my shoes. Colleges, internships, trainings, boards, even the people who would supposedly be right for me." Nina leaned her hip against the table beside him. "And you?" she asked, tilting her head. "What do you want?" Maxwell went silent, the longest silence she had seen from him, a silence full of truth. "I still don't know," he admitted, "and that terrifies me, but I know I'm going to make the right decision." His honesty cut through Nina like a bolt of lightning, direct, warm, unexpected. The restaurant filled up, orders poured in, plates were delivered, customers complained, others thanked them. But even in the middle of the chaos, Maxwell stayed, still patient, as if he were waiting for a precise moment. When the rush finally eased and Nina could breathe again, she went back to his table. "Sorry for the delay. Sometimes this place is insane," she said. "It's fine," Maxwell replied. "I understand. I like watching you work." Her fingers froze for a moment. "Watching? What do you mean?" "You're—" He searched for the right word. "Intense and gentle at the same time. It's rare to see that in someone." She looked away, feeling her face heat. "Maxwell." "Nina," he cut in, his voice soft but sure. "I want to see you outside of here." The world went quiet for a moment. "You've made me curious, yes," he went on, "but not just because of your intelligence or your answers." He drew in a breath. "It's you. I want to know more about you." Nina felt her heart leap out of rhythm. "Are you asking me out?" "Yes." His eyes held hers like they were a place. "I am." She blinked, not knowing where to put the avalanche of emotions surging inside her. "When?" "Today," he said, without looking away. "After your shift, if you'd like." Nina smiled, the kind of smile she rarely let slip. Soft, shy, a little disbelieving, but loaded with something that could easily turn dangerous if she wasn't careful. "Yes, I'd like that," she said, her voice almost a whisper. The relief that crossed Maxwell's face was so real, so human, that Nina felt the ground shift beneath her feet. He let out a breath he couldn't hide, as if he'd been holding the air in since the moment he walked into the restaurant. "Then it's settled," Maxwell murmured, lowering his tone a bit as if sealing an intimate agreement just between them. "Tonight." He didn't rush to get up. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, resting one hand on the table, long fingers relaxed but attentive, as if her touch might slip away if he moved too fast. "Nina," he hesitated for half a second, "I need your contact so we can set the time. I don't want to disrupt your shift or make you wait." She blinked, surprised by the gentleness. "Oh, sure." Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled her notepad from her apron, trying to rip out a sheet without looking nervous. Here." Before she could write, Maxwell reached out, not to touch her hand, but to carefully take the pad, as if it was something too precious to crumple. "May I?" he asked. The simple question made her throat tighten. "You may." He held the pen with elegant certainty, wrote his own number in neat slanted handwriting, then turned the page toward her. "Text me when you leave here." His gaze softened, melting the edges of his always controlled demeanor. "I want to make sure you got home safely. And then we'll plan everything." Nina felt her heart stumble. "You'd want me to text you just to say I got home safe?" "I do," he replied without hesitation. "I want to know you're safe, and," he searched her eyes, "that you really are going to meet me tonight." He gave her a small smile. She tried to hold back her own smile but couldn't. "Okay, I'll text you." Maxwell's eyes dropped briefly to her hand holding the paper, delicate, slightly trembling, and when they lifted again, something in his gaze had changed. It was warmer, more intense. "Great," he said quietly. He finally picked up his coat, sliding it on with a controlled, almost ritualistic motion. He took 2 steps back, but stopped before reaching the door. He looked at her over his shoulder, a look heavy with promises neither of them dared to name yet. "See you later, Nina." She felt her own name in his voice, steady, deep, almost protective, and something inside her opened silently. "See you later, Maxwell." He walked out, and the door swayed with the cold, late afternoon wind. And Nina stayed there, holding that slip of paper with his number, feeling as if she were about to cross an invisible bridge into a world she never imagined she would touch. A dangerous world, a captivating world. Nina's shift, which was supposed to end at 5:30, stretched to 6:30. The diner was too crowded, too loud, and the manager seemed to have lost track of time while she balanced plates and took orders non-stop. When she finally took off her apron, her shoulders ached and her feet throbbed, but there was something else humming beneath it all. Expectation. She grabbed her bag, left the restaurant, and walked to the bus stop with the cold afternoon wind brushing her face. The sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, almost as if the city were wishing her good luck. While she waited for the bus, her phone buzzed in her hand. Maxwell Rochford. "Done with your shift?" Nina bit the corner of her lip, her heart speeding up. Nina. "Yes, just got on the bus. I'm heading home to get ready." His reply came fast, almost immediately. Maxwell. "Perfect. Call me when you're ready. I'll come pick you up." The air left her lungs in a messy rush. Nina. "Okay." The bus arrived. Nina stepped on, tapped her card, and sat by the window. The city lights began to turn on as she swayed with the movement of the vehicle. At every corner, at every stop, she replayed in her mind the moment she'd said yes to his invitation. And for the first time in a long time, she felt butterflies in her stomach. Not the silly kind, they were dangerous butterflies, the kind that can change everything. About an hour later, Nina unlocked the door of the tiny apartment she shared with Tasha and Bree. "Girl, finally!" Bree exclaimed from the couch, holding a mug of hot tea. "You disappeared today, seriously." "The shift was rough," Nina replied, dropping her bag on the small table. I'm going out in a bit." The two women exchanged a look, like predators catching the scent of fresh gossip. "Going out?" Tasha repeated, a mischievous smile spreading across her face. With who?" Nina took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice neutral. "A co-worker." Both of them widened their eyes at the same time. "Co-worker?" Bree mimicked air quotes. "Hayes, you are a terrible liar. Who is he?" Nina tried not to blush. "Maxwell." "Maxwell?" They both shouted together, like it was the name of a famous character. "Guys, calm down." Nina raised her hands, laughing. "It's just a date." Tasha clapped her hands in pure excitement. "A date with a man named that? That's not just a date, that's literature." "And is he hot?" Bree asked, leaning forward. Nina felt her face warm against her will. "A little." They both burst into laughter. "Go get ready now," Tasha said, pushing Nina toward the hallway. "I will accept nothing less than a cute dress and a natural glow." Nina rolled her eyes, but she was smiling as she stepped into the bathroom. Hot steam filled the small space as she showered. The water ran down her tired body, relaxing muscles that had been tense all day. Nina braced her hands against the cool wall, breathing deeply. She was really about to meet Maxwell. About to. And deep down, she was nervous in a way she barely remembered how to feel. She felt afraid, too. Afraid of getting in too deep, afraid of not being enough, afraid of stepping into a world that had always ignored her. But she also felt longing. Longing for something new. Longing to be seen. Longing to be chosen. Not out of convenience, but by someone like him. Her heart was beating way too hard. When she stepped out of the shower, she wrapped herself in a towel and went to her room. The hanging yellow bulb cast a soft light, making everything look intimate, almost magical. Nina opened her small improvised drawer and looked for something simple, pretty, but still her. She found the perfect dress. A bit short, loose, the light fabric moving with her body, a neutral color, elegant, that highlighted her shoulder-length curls, which she left down in their natural volume. She did simple makeup, light coverage, a soft blush, a touch of shimmer around her eyes and clear gloss. When she finished, she stared at her phone as if it were alive. Her finger hovered over the screen for a few seconds, until finally, with a sigh, she pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Nina?" Maxwell's voice came through on the other end, deeper and closer than she expected. She swallowed hard. "Hi, I'm ready." There was a pause filled with something she felt run down her spine. "I'm on my way," he said. "I'll be there in less than 20 minutes. Her heart jumped. "Okay, Nina?" he called before she could hang up. "Yes? Are you nervous?" She bit her lip. "A little." On the other end, his voice softened like velvet. "Don't be, okay? Relax." And before she could answer, he added, "See you soon." The sound of the call ending seemed to echo through the entire room. Nina stayed there for a moment, holding the phone against her chest, feeling her life shift in silence, a small detour in the path that, without her noticing, would lead to a completely unexpected destination. The sound of a car slowing down drifted softly up the narrow street. Nina went down the 3 steps at the building's entrance, adjusting her bag strap on her shoulder while she tried to calm her racing breath. And then she heard, "Nina." She turned, and air simply didn't return in that instant. For a moment, it was like the entire street disappeared. "Hi, hey," she murmured, unable to hide the impact. Maxwell was standing beside the car, leaning against a lamppost that poured golden light over him. It looked like a movie scene, impossible to ignore, impossible to invent. The dark wool coat hung open, revealing a deep blue shirt perfectly fitted to his tall, elegant frame. The cold wind had messed up his dark hair in the perfect way, like it had been styled just so a few strands fell near his eyebrow. The light traced the lines of his face, the strong jaw, the angle of his cheek, the mouth that looked dangerously calm. But it was his eyes, those blue-gray eyes shining under the soft light, that truly held Nina. There was something in them, something that seemed to mix surprise and wonder, like he was watching the moon rise just for him. Maxwell took a step forward. "You..." He drew in a slow breath, as if he needed air to go on. "My God, Nina, you look stunning." The compliment slipped out unfiltered, almost a whisper, too loaded to be casual. Nina felt her heart race like a bird trying to escape its cage. "Thank you," she said shyly. "I tried to dress up a little. A little." Maxwell laughed softly, shaking his head. "There is nothing a little about you." His gaze swept over the short, flowing dress, the soft curls falling over her shoulders, the delicate makeup that enhanced her features. "You took my breath away." And Nina felt deeply that it wasn't a line. It was true, honestly true. Maxwell opened the car door for her, his gaze staying on her as if he were afraid of breaking the moment. "Shall we?" he asked with that low voice that seemed to stroke the air. Nina felt her knees almost give out, but she nodded. "Let's go." And as she got into the car, one single certainty ran over her skin like a shiver. Her life had just become something else. Nina caught his scent as she sat down. Soft wood, something fresh, something expensive but discreet. The inside of the car was warm, and the radio played low instrumental jazz, so gentle it felt like part of the air. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere quiet," Maxwell replied, starting the engine. "Where we can talk without rushing." She studied him from the side. The serious profile, the firm jaw, the way he drove with long, precise fingers on the wheel. He looked like someone who carried the world, but who that night wanted to carry her too. The car moved through Denver's lit streets until it stopped in front of a small restaurant with an old facade, warm lights, and windows fogged by the heat inside. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't loud. It was intimate, cozy, smelling of fresh bread and wine. "Here?" Nina asked, surprised. "Here," Maxwell confirmed. "No show-off tonight. Not today." She understood. He could have chosen any grand place, any rooftop, any Michelin-starred kitchen, any luxury. But he chose this. A place that wouldn't intimidate her, wouldn't make her feel small, wouldn't make her feel out of place. She took a deep breath. He was trying. The table was small, with a low candle in the center. Maxwell pulled out her chair. A simple gesture, but packed with care. Nina tried not to fall for that. She really tried, but she failed a little. When the waiter brought their water glasses, Maxwell said, "Before we start, can I ask you a question?" "Another one?" she teased, raising an eyebrow. "Last one for tonight," he promised, eyes glinting. "Okay, ask." Maxwell rested his forearms on the table, leaning toward her. "What do you really think of me?" Nina blinked, caught off guard. "I don't exactly know." "Try," he insisted. "I want to hear it from you." She thought, and then thought a little more. And then carefully she said, "I think you're different than I expected." A pause. "You're kind, intelligent, very observant." Another pause. "But you also seem sad, or tired maybe." Maxwell didn't look away. He didn't dodge. He didn't make a joke out of it. "I think I'm tired of living a life I didn't choose," he confessed. Nina felt her heart tighten. "And why are you telling me this?" Maxwell drew a deep breath. "Because when I'm with you," his voice was almost a whisper, "I feel different, less trapped." The air thickened between them. "Does that scare you?" she asked softly. "Yes," he admitted, "but the idea of never feeling that again scares me even more." Nina looked away for a moment, her hands trembling in her lap. She felt it too, from a distance, up close, in her bones. But there was fear too. "Maxwell, you know who you are. I know who you are. And I don't belong in that world," she said, trying to be rational. He stretched out his hand slowly, as if asking permission from the universe. "I don't want someone from my world," he said. "I want you." The water glass flickered with the reflection of the candle. Her eyes lifted to his slowly. "Why?" "Because I am falling in love with you," Maxwell said, with the vulnerability of someone who had never said that before. Nina felt the air stumble inside her. The words she'd tried to hide cracked open before she could hold them back. "I am too," she swallowed hard. "But I'm scared. You're a lot, and I'm what I am." Maxwell frowned slightly. "Nina, you are everything I never knew I needed." There was too much truth in those words, and in that moment, her fear didn't disappear, but something stronger took its place. They talked for hours. He told her about Wharton, the internship, the strict father and the loving but absent mother. She told him about college, the tiny apartment, the struggle to pay bills, the dreams she kept tucked away. And with each exchange, each question, each look, something built between them, solid, warm, inevitable. When they left, the cold night wind wrapped around them both. Maxwell walked toward her slowly, as if the wrong distance could ruin the moment. "Can I walk you home?" he asked. She nodded. The walk was quiet, but not empty. Their hands almost touched. Almost. Until finally, naturally they did. Their fingers laced together, and it felt right. At her building door, Maxwell stopped. "Can I see you again?" he asked, with that sincerity that undid everything. "Yes, I want that," she said. He leaned in slowly, like he was asking permission. She closed her eyes, and the kiss happened, gentle, deep, full of beginning, and it was right there that everything began to unravel, for the best and for the worst. The dates started out shy. A coffee here, a lunch there, but soon they turned into whole evenings, dinners in dimly lit restaurants, places where the waiter knew Maxwell by his first name, places where Nina felt small and seen at the same time. And he seemed fascinated by showing her pieces of his world. "Do you trust me?" Maxwell asked in the second week, opening the door of a French restaurant where the carpet felt too soft to be real. Nina laughed nervously. "I do, but I'm afraid I'll trip and fall right on top of some important billionaire in there." "If you fall, I'll fall with you," he said, laughing, taking her hand. It was just their hands touching, but the warmth that rushed up her arm was enough to knock the air from her lungs. 3 weeks later, he took her to his apartment, a glass high-rise with a view over the glowing city, silent elevator, marble lobby, and when the doors opened, a world Nina had never imagined stepping into. The apartment was modern, spacious, with polished concrete walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. The entire city sparkled at their feet. Nina stopped in the doorway, almost forgetting how to breathe. "Maxwell, this place, it's incredible. It's just somewhere I stay," he said, closing the door behind her. But it never made sense until now. He wasn't looking at the apartment. He was looking at her. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Too full. He took one step, then another. Nina felt her heart race, not in panic but in recognition. Her body knew before her mind did. "Nina," he murmured, coming close enough that she could feel his warm breath on her face. "If I'm moving too fast, tell me." She didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she lifted her hand and touched his face, the line of his jaw, warm and firm beneath her fingers. He closed his eyes instantly, as if that gesture had taken down every defense he carried around. "You're so—" she began but couldn't find the words. "I'm nothing without this," he replied, opening his eyes, and then he kissed her. His hands cradled her face as if it were the last thing in the world. His mouth was warm, urgent, hungry. Nina felt her knees give, clutching his shoulders so she wouldn't fall. Maxwell's kiss deepened, more intense, more desperate. His hands slid down to her waist, pulling her even closer. Nina buried her fingers in his hair, tugging, answering with the same urgency. It was desire, it was ache, it was guilt, it was relief, and the rest of that night became a blur of emotion, muffled laughter, whispered words. A sigh escaped Nina when he deepened the kiss, slow and sure. Maxwell rested his forehead against hers. "I want you, Nina," he whispered, "but only if you want me too." Nina didn't think twice, touched his neck, trembling, and murmured, "So do I," she whispered. It was enough. He guided her through the apartment, touching her carefully, as if he were handling something precious, his hand sliding over the curve of her shoulders, then along her side, kisses along her neck, her collarbone, the nape of her neck, and then the whole city disappeared behind them. The night became theirs, entirely, and that was where the world changed without either of them realizing it. The days that followed were a kind of sweet fever. They saw each other whenever they could, sometimes for hours, sometimes for minutes. Quick lunches, long messages, stolen kisses in the car, her crossing off college assignments with her head resting on his shoulder, him going through international contracts with Nina asleep on the couch. 4 months. 4 months of passion, laughter, touch, discovery, and an intimacy that grew so fast it felt like it lived with them all the time. Maxwell didn't hide anything. "I'm in love with you," he told her on a winter night, when snow was beginning to pile up on the windowsills. "I know it sounds early, but I know what I feel." Nina swallowed back the tears before they fell. "I am too," she confessed. "In a way, that scares me." He pulled her close, his voice low and sure. Nothing about you scares me, Nina. She wanted to believe him. She really did. And for a while, she did. Maxwell never introduced her to his family, always with excuses at the ready. My father is very complicated, Nina, he'd say, kissing her forehead. He's old-fashioned about everything. Let's wait for the right moment. Nina tried to ignore the whispers at social events, the sizing looks from women in designer dresses when Max said, "My Nina." She preferred to focus on the way he made her laugh, how he challenged her, how he made her feel special. Until the afternoon, everything changed. Until, on a grey late afternoon, fate left the mark that would change it all. Nina had been staring at the drugstore test for long minutes in the diner bathroom, the door locked, her hands trembling. She already knew. Her body already knew. But seeing the two lines appear slowly, as if the universe were writing her new life, made something sink deep in her chest. After the initial shock, a cautious joy had bloomed. They hadn't planned this, but after 4 months together, Nina believed they had something real. Maxwell often talked about their future, about taking her to Paris in the spring, about the role she could take in his business after she graduated. She took a deep breath, put the test in her bag, and sent Maxwell a message. "We need to talk today." He replied immediately. "Of course. Do you want me to pick you up?" "Yes," she typed. His apartment was quiet when she walked in. Maxwell closed the door slowly, immediately noticing how nervous she was. "Nina, are you okay? What happened?" She held the two tests in her hand for a few seconds before speaking. Nina took a deep breath. "Maxwell, I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Max's glass stopped in midair, inches from his lips. His blue-gray eyes went cold, fixed on her face. "You've got to be kidding me, right? Is this some kind of joke?" "What?" "No, we were always careful, but..." And all the sound of the city seemed to vanish in a single second. He went completely still, his eyes locked. The world stopped. "Is this..." he whispered. "Is this real?" "Yes," Nina replied, her voice unsteady. "I'm pregnant." He brought a hand to his face, taking a few steps back as if something had slammed into his chest. "My God, Nina, this can't be... Not now." He shook his head. "Maxwell." She tried to step closer. Nina held the test with the two unmistakable lines, her hands trembling. Maxwell stared at it as if it were a death sentence, not a life one. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing from one side of the room to the other, his entire body tense. "No," he murmured again, his voice almost breaking. "This can't be happening right now." Nina inhaled deeply. "Maxwell, I'm scared too, but we can handle this. Together." He lifted his gaze, and for the first time since she'd known him, Nina saw real fear there, raw fear. He wasn't the confident man who took her to luxurious restaurants, nor the brilliant Wharton student who spoke about international contracts with bright eyes. He was a frightened boy, a son trapped in a destiny he hadn't chosen. "Together?" Maxwell repeated, almost laughing, but in a way that hurt her. "You don't understand. My father, my family. This will ruin everything." The sentence cut through Nina like a knife. He didn't say, "ruin my family," or "ruin my future." He said everything. "Maxwell..." She tried to touch his arm, but he stepped back as if her touch burned him. "I'm in my second to last year, Nina," he exploded. "I'm finally being taken seriously at my internship, finally starting to prove to my father that I can take over the company. I can't..." He stopped, breath trapped. "I can't have a child right now." She felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. "I didn't plan this," Nina said, her voice trembling. "I didn't do anything alone. I didn't expect this to happen, but it did. And it's ours." "Ours?" Maxwell rubbed his face. "You have no idea what this means in my world." Nina stepped back. That "my world" hit like a door slamming shut. "So I'm not part of that world?" she asked, with more strength than she felt. He stayed silent, the kind of silence that answers without words. "My father is going to destroy me," Maxwell muttered, pacing again. "He already thinks I'm too distracted. He's always said women from outside our circle are trouble, that they can ruin everything." Nina pressed a hand to her chest, as if trying to hold her heart together. "So you're saying I'm a problem?" Maxwell opened his mouth, but no denial came, no attempt to soften it. The absence of an answer was the answer. Nina swallowed the sob building in her throat. "I thought you loved me," she whispered. Maxwell shut his eyes, pained. "I do, but I can't. Nina, this wasn't in my plans." "But it's in mine now," she said, her voice breaking. "And I need you." He looked at her as if torn between what he felt and what he feared. I can't keep this, he said, inhaling sharply. Us. This baby. It was like being hit in the chest. You're leaving me? Her voice barely came out. Maxwell swallowed hard. I need to think. I need space. I need to get my life together. And what about me? She whispered. He looked away. I don't know what you're going to do, Nina. I'm sorry. Those words shattered her completely. She turned her face away, trying to hold back the tears, but failed miserably. Maxwell, please, don't make me go through this alone. Not now. He closed his eyes, tortured. I can't. His voice was barely a thread. I can't handle this right now. And then he walked out, just like that, without looking back, without asking if she'd get home safely, without promises. The door shut, and the sound echoed like a blow to Nina's chest. She collapsed to her knees on the floor of his apartment, on the expensive carpet where they had laughed together, lived together, loved together. Now she was there alone, broken, holding the belly he refused to accept. And she cried until there was no air left, cried until her whole body shook, cried until nothing was left inside her. The days that followed were a blur, a full week of unending pain. Maxwell didn't text, didn't call, didn't ask if she was okay. Nothing. It was as if the 4 months of love had evaporated from his life. Tasha and Bree did everything they could to take care of her. Made soup, lay with her on the couch, played soft music, but none of it could heal the wound bleeding inside her. And another fear grew. Her life was changing at brutal speed. Despite being shattered, Nina couldn't stop. She had work, she had college, she had bills, she had a future now growing inside her. The nausea came early, so did the exhaustion. Standing for hours at the diner felt impossible, but she did it. Coming home with aching knees became routine. Studying late and waking early was mandatory. Graduation was close enough that she refused to give up. She would survive, because now it wasn't just her. 5 months passed. Her body changed too fast, her belly growing larger than she expected for her gestational age. She tried to ignore the growing worry, but deep down she wondered, is there more than one in there? At the appointment, she sat in the cold white chair, staring at the floor. The smell of alcohol and cotton filled the air. The doctor walked in, smiling. Let's see how this baby is growing, Nina. She nodded, lying on the exam table. The cold gel touched her skin, sending a shiver through her body. The screen lit up. The doctor frowned slightly. He murmured, tilting his head. Interesting. Nina's heart stopped. What is it, doctor? Is something wrong? The doctor smiled. Nothing bad. Actually, something wonderful. He turned the screen slightly toward her. We've got company in here. Company? Nina repeated, confused. Congratulations, Nina, there are 2, he said warmly. 2 babies. He pointed. Here and here. 2 strong little heartbeats. Nina brought her hands to her mouth, startled. Twins. 2 boys. 2. Her world flipped upside down again, but this time, unlike the first, something inside her rose. Strength, instinct, courage. She was alone, but she wasn't empty. And now, she had to fight for 3. The sound of the 2 heartbeats echoed through the room like a secret finally revealed. Twins, the doctor said, pointing to the 2 pulsing lights inside her. Nina walked out with the envelope in her hands, the cold Denver air reminding her that she was no longer alone. There were 3 now, and despite the fear, something new, a thread of courage, had begun to form. But on the crowded bus, reality hit hard. 2, she murmured, gripping the metal rail. Raising 1 baby would already be difficult. 2, with no family, no partner. Almost impossible, almost. Nina Hayes had never run from the impossible. At home, Tasha and Bree looked up the moment they saw her in the doorway, the envelope trembling in her hand. That is not a normal doctor face, Bree said. Breathe, Tasha urged. Nina sat down, still holding the envelope. How is the baby? Tasha asked. Babies, Nina finally said. Plural. Both froze. Nina opened the envelope. 2 tiny dots. 2 lives. 2 boys, she added, and then she broke down. Her friends wrapped their arms around her as she cried. I don't have anyone. Maxwell disappeared, and I'm going to do this alone. Tasha cupped her face. You have us. We're your family. And those boys already have 2 crazy aunties, Bree added. Nina laughed through her tears. You 2 are everything to me, and you are everything to us, Tasha said. You're strong. The days went by quickly. Nina kept working at the diner, even exhausted. The manager reduced her shifts when he noticed her belly growing. "It's twins," she explained. "Twins!" Melanie shrieked. "You need time off." But Nina couldn't stop. She needed the money, and graduation was getting closer as she juggled classes, assignments, and appointments. The nights were long, and Maxwell was still gone. No messages. As if the 4 months they spent together had never existed. As her belly grew, her small room felt too tight. "I think I'll have to move," she said one night. Tasha nodded. "You need space. We'll find something cheap," Bree added. Nina confessed quietly. "I'm scared." "You're not alone," Tasha said. "And you have them." They started searching for places, second-hand furniture, diaper prices. Nina moved forward exhausted but stubborn. Whenever she doubted, she remembered the 2 heartbeats. Almost 7 months later, she felt a small movement in her belly. She froze, emotional. "Hey, boys, you're in there." And she realized she wasn't just surviving. She was becoming someone new, someone strong, someone they could call Mom. Winter in Denver had a quiet, cutting way of biting. Nina felt it every time she walked to the bus, her belly growing quickly beneath her thick coat. Each week, she saw in the mirror how her 2 boys fought for space, and she tried her best to keep up. That morning, she walked carefully along the damp sidewalks. The bus arrived crowded. She climbed in slowly and refused the seat offered to her. She preferred standing, feeling the babies move as if responding to the sway of the vehicle. "Twins?" a woman beside her asked. Nina's eyes widened. "You can tell?" "I had 3, the woman laughed. "We recognize it from a mile away." There's a glow, and a certain exhaustion too. Nina's smile was weak but genuine. "You'll do great," the woman said. "Mothers of twins learn to be strong fast." The phrase echoed inside her the entire way. At the diner, Melanie rushed to her. "Hayes, every week it looks like you brought another little piece of baby in there." "2 pieces, Nina corrected. 2 boys. The manager appeared. "No heavy trays. If I see you lifting weight, you're going to the counter." It sounded like a threat, but Nina knew it was care. During her shift, the smell of hot coffee and the movement of the tables made her forget for a few minutes about Maxwell, the abandonment, the pain. On break, Melanie brought hot chocolate. "You look pale," Nina sighed. "I'm saving everything I can. I need to move soon. I can't raise 2 boys in that apartment." "You'll manage," Melanie said. Nina lowered her voice. "Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about us." "He doesn't deserve a single one of your tears," her friend replied. Still, Maxwell's ghost lingered. Not the cold man from their last encounter, but the one who promised, smiled, said, "I love you." But ghosts don't pay rent, and they don't hold babies. She and Tasha began visiting simple houses. One was damp and moldy, another had a small sunlit backyard. "This one," Nina whispered. "I could fit 2 cribs." Tasha assessed it. "The kitchen is small, but it works." Nina imagined infant laughter echoing there, until she saw the rental price. "I can't afford this right now." "Then you'll save until you can," Tasha said. And Nina did. She saved every cent, cut everything she could, coffee, snacks, even nicer soap. College felt more distant each week. Night classes were hard, especially when the babies kicked non-stop. The Braxton Hicks contractions came too early, but she pushed through. Assignments turned in, tests completed, grades maintained. She needed that diploma like she needed air. Across the city, Maxwell was living a silent collapse. He drowned himself in the internship, in his studies, in family pressure. At night, sitting in his empty apartment, he still heard her voice saying, "I'm pregnant." He never told anyone. He swallowed the guilt, but the remorse never let him go. Nina kept going, steady, exhausted, determined. The days blurred together. Work, bus rides, college, nausea, pain, cold, fear, and hope. Until one night, taking off her clothes for a shower, she saw her belly move, a tiny foot pushing from the inside. She smiled. "You two," she whispered. "You're growing too fast." And she knew she was going to make it. For Liam and Luca, time didn't pass. It raced. Before she realized it, Nina was 7 months along, diploma in hand. Graduation took place in a simple auditorium, smelling of new paper and cheap flowers. She walked slowly to the stage, balancing her breathing between light contractions. Nina Hayes, Business Administration. Tasha and Bree screamed from the 3rd row. The babies moved as if celebrating with her. The program coordinator handed her the diploma with a respectful smile. Stepping off the stage, Nina felt pride and relief, but returning to her small house, reality hit. She'd graduated, yes, but without a job in her field, pregnant with 2 boys, relying only on her diner salary. The house slowly gained soul. Bargain curtains from Brie, little plants from Tasha, a second-hand table, and the baby's room, where love already lived. It was simple, but precious. Donations started arriving like miracles. On a hard day at the diner, Mr. Kramer made her sit down. "You're overdoing it." Then he added, "My nephews outgrew some things. 2 cribs were delivered to your house." Nina cried. "I don't even know what to say." "Don't thank me. Just sit when I tell you to." Days later, Melanie and Mike arrived with a twin stroller. "I can't accept." "Yes, you can," Mike insisted. Nina hugged them, overwhelmed. The end of her pregnancy became a challenge. Swollen legs, burning back, constant kicks, sleepless nights. Even so, she washed tiny clothes by hand, hung them out to dry, organized drawers, touched her belly and whispered, "I'm going to try to be the best mother I can." Meanwhile, Maxwell sank into silence. He told no one. His father pressured him. "Focus on your career, distractions are not allowed." Sometimes Maxwell unlocked his phone, saw her name, and still couldn't call. Fear, shame, the echo of her voice saying, "I need you." He worked until the silence swallowed him whole. The months passed like that, until the freezing dawn when the pain struck. "Nina?" Tasha shouted. "It's time?" In the taxi, Nina breathed the way she'd been taught, crying from fear. At the hospital, nurses supported her. "You can do this." I don't know." "Yes, you can." For them, labor was intense, exhausting, but then the first cry filled the room. "He's beautiful," the nurse said. Moments later, another strong cry. "Another boy." "Liam," Nina whispered. "Luca," she murmured as she received the second. She laughed and cried at the same time. Both boys were perfect. The following weeks were chaos and tenderness. Long nights, diapers, bottles, little sleep, and 2 babies sleeping pressed together. She had done it. Her boss called, "3 months off. When you're ready, your job is waiting." For the first time, Nina breathed without fear. She was exhausted, scared, but whole. And she wasn't alone. Liam and Luca were everything. 2 reasons to fight. 2 miracles sleeping on her chest. The first days at home with Liam and Luca passed like a fog, alternating cries, bottles, diapers, and tiny moments of sleep that barely allowed her to breathe. Nina quickly understood that being a mother of twins wasn't caregiving, it was survival. 2 babies wanting to be held at the same time, 2 crying for different reasons, 2 wanting to feed at the exact second she thought she'd have a moment of peace. Her body ached, her legs trembled, and sometimes she fell asleep sitting on the couch only to wake up minutes later when the other cried. But she never complained, because it was love. Tasha and Brie rotated shifts to help. Dishes, laundry, soups, holding 1 baby so Nina could take a 5-minute shower. "You're a hero," Brie would say. "I'm just trying not to lose my mind," Nina replied. "And you're doing great," Tasha insisted. But money remained tight. Diapers vanished quickly, formula was expensive, and the heating bill rose with the portable heater. Nina wrote everything in a notebook, every cent. In the rare minutes alone, anxiety whispered, "You're doing this alone." Meanwhile, Maxwell's routine was the opposite. Impeccable on the outside, suits, meetings, grades, respect. But inside, he lived in invisible ruins. He lost focus whenever someone mentioned family, remembered her in the coffee shop, dreamed about Nina more than he dared to admit. And always, there was the silence. You abandoned her. He thought about calling, about going to the diner, apologizing. But then his father's words echoed, "Pregnant? That's a setback, a trap. You have greater responsibilities." And out of cowardice, he kept quiet. Time moved quickly. 1 month, 2, 3. The house carried familiar smells. Warm milk, baby soap, diaper cream, reheated coffee. Liam was fussy, wanting to be held. Luca was observant, staring at the ceiling as if discovering universes. And Nina discovered something new too. A love so big it hurt, and a deep exhaustion. Some nights she cried in the bathroom, whispering, "I can't do this." But at the first tiny cry, she stood up. "I can, for you." Maxwell drifted from the world. Co-workers noticed his seriousness. Professors, the emptiness in his eyes. One day he finally picked up his phone. Her number was still there. His finger tapped call. But pride, fear, and his father's voice made him cancel before the first ring. He spent the night drinking whiskey, staring at his reflection in the empty apartment. 4 months after the birth, Nina sat on the couch with Liam in her arms and Luca sleeping beside her. She thought she knew every detail about them, but that late afternoon something hit her hard. The golden light highlighted features she had never allowed herself to see so clearly: the shape of their eyes, the slight arch of their eyebrows, the faint dimple when Liam smiled in his sleep, Luca's perfect nose just like Maxwell's, the dark, soft, wavy hair, identical. They were the spitting image of their father, 2 mini versions of him. Nina brought a hand to her mouth. My God! The truth struck her like an old impact that finally found space. The pain came, a tight, suffocating knot in her chest. You belong to him, and he doesn't even know. He doesn't want to know. Liam moved his tiny hand, touching her shirt. Nina wiped her tears and kissed his forehead. I promise you'll never need him to know you're loved. And then she understood something painful and powerful. She had 2 small reflections of the man who had broken her heart. She would have to live with that every day. But she also had something new: strength, more than ever. And with or without Maxwell, she would raise both of them. The twins were about to turn 5 months old when Nina realized she needed to think beyond tomorrow. Bills were piling up. Diapers disappeared overnight. Formula kept getting more expensive, and her leave from the diner had only 15 days left. She knew she couldn't go back to the same job, not with 2 babies, a tight paycheck, and a brand new diploma sitting in a drawer. She needed something better, something in her field, something for the boy's future. Just thinking about it made her chest tighten. Tasha, I can't do this, she murmured, rocking Liam. Someone is going to hire you, Tasha said. You won a war on your own. It sounds pretty when you say it, Nina sighed. Because it's true, Bree added, holding Luca in her arms. Go take a shower, today is our turn. The next morning, Nina opened her old laptop and sent out resumes. 3 days later, the first interview came. She put on her single dress shirt. The receptionist gave her a soft, judging smile. The interview was cold, quick, bureaucratic. The "we'll be in touch" never came. The second interview at a startup began well until the question, do you have children? Yes, 2, twins. The expression shifted. Another, we'll be in touch. Another silence. And then, in the middle of the chaos, something unexpected. Her phone rang. Maxwell. Nina froze. She answered. Nina? It's me. The past hit like a punch. What do you want? I wanted to know how you're doing. 5 months too late. I know. I messed up. I wanted to talk. You left me alone, pregnant. I was scared. It doesn't matter. I don't need you. Silence. And the babies? Were they born healthy? Perfect. And they don't need you either. The pain in his voice was audible. Nina hung up before she could weaken. It still hurt, but he hadn't been there. Maxwell tried again. 2 calls, 3 messages. I just want to know if you're okay. Nina deleted them without replying. She knew the truth. She wasn't okay, and he didn't deserve to know. The next months were filled with interviews, rejections, anxious nights, until something shifted. A small local accounting firm called her in. Simple office, smell of coffee. The manager, a woman with kind eyes, flipped through her resume. You finished college pregnant with twins. That takes more discipline than a lot of MBAs. I did my best, Nina said. You did far more than that. Tell me about yourself. The interview was human. For the first time, Nina felt like someone truly saw her. At the end, the manager smiled. When can you start? The air disappeared. I got it? You got it. Welcome to the team. Nina cried. Relief, gratitude, triumph. When she got home, Tasha and Bree were feeding the boys. Well? Bree asked. Nina stopped in the doorway, hands over her mouth, tears in her eyes. I got the job! The friends screamed, hugged, nearly knocked over bottles. Nina laughed in a way she hadn't laughed since before the pregnancy. For the first time, she could imagine a future beyond survival, and she understood. She didn't need Maxwell to be whole, but the boys, they were the reminder of both love and pain. At that same moment across the city, Maxwell sat in his car, parked in front of the building where he thought Nina lived. He didn't get out. He didn't knock. He just sat there, fighting something he'd never admit: regret. He missed her, but he didn't know if he deserved to go back. While Nina began again, he sank deeper into his own emptiness. The new job started on a cold Monday, with melting snow along the sidewalks. Nina walked into the small accounting building holding a simple folder, and every bit of courage she had left. Her hands trembled, her heart felt trapped. but crossing the glass door brought something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The receptionist smiled and Margot waved confidently. "Welcome, Nina. I have a feeling you're going to be one of our best hires this year. I hope I don't disappoint." "Trust me, you won't." The first weeks were intense. Nina was rusty. Mastering spreadsheets, reports, and new systems demanded more from her mind than her exhausted body could give. But she threw herself into the work the same way she had thrown herself into motherhood. She arrived early, learned fast, wrote everything down, asked for feedback, delivered flawless results. "You work with precision," Margot said, "even while juggling a double shift." "I do the best I can." "No, dear, you do more." Life slowly began to align. It wasn't easy or light, but it no longer felt impossible. With her new salary, Nina hired Donna Celia, a warm-hearted older woman with gentle hands and endless patience. "I've taken care of 3 sets of twins," she said. "They will be in good hands." And they were. Liam and Luca laughed, slept, ate, and nestled against her chest like 2 little birds. The house gained new life, the smell of milk cake, lullabies, invented stories. "They love you," Nina said. "And I already love them too," Celia replied. The months went by like fine stitching. Work, short nights, bottles, spreadsheets, diapers, but something new took root. Stability. Not wealth, but dignity. Rent was paid, the fridge was full, the electric bill under control. She built a home filled with safety, love, and laughter. When Liam and Luca turned 1, the house overflowed with joy. Blue balloons, a simple cake, improvised sweets, and a handwritten banner. "This is all I could ever want," Nina murmured, kissing them both. Meanwhile, Maxwell lived in the shadow of his own choices. Work grew, responsibilities grew, but nothing filled the emptiness. He tried to forget, but failed. Tried to justify the past, but it rang hollow. One night he picked up his phone, typed, deleted, typed again, deleted, finally sent, "Nina, I'm sorry for everything." She saw it, but didn't reply. Hours later, another message. "Please, give me a chance to talk." Nina was rocking Liam when she read it. Her chest tightened. For a moment she wanted to answer. She wanted to ask, "Why didn't you come?" But she looked at her sons, at the life she built alone, at the strength that took months to find, and she wrote only, "I don't need you. Live your life." Maxwell stared at the screen for long minutes. For the first time he understood. He had lost the right to be there. Weeks turned into months. Nina excelled so much that Margot called her into a meeting. "You have talent, Nina. I want to promote you to senior administrative assistant." I can't believe it." "Believe it. You deserve this," Nina cried. It was the first step on a ladder that once felt unreachable. When she got home, she told her friends, "I got promoted." The house exploded in screams and laughter. Life wasn't perfect. There were still bills, exhaustion, hard nights. But Nina was winning, not because someone saved her, but because she saved herself. And Liam and Luca, so much like Maxwell that it still hurt, were proof that she had chosen to continue, and chosen well. The weeks after the promotion passed like a steady wind, demanding but favorable. Nina woke at 6, made coffee, and walked to the boys' room. Liam was always the first to wake, dark eyes so much like Maxwell's. Luca came next, slow and sleepy, gripping the edge of the crib. She lifted them into her arms and thought, "I can do this. For you, I can." Donna Celia arrived at 7:30 with her warm smile. Nina rushed out the door, but never without looking at her sons one last time. At the office, the senior routine was intense. Complex reports, strategic spreadsheets, meetings, sensitive documents. Margot noticed everything. "Your precision is impressive," she praised one morning. "Keep this up, and in a year, we'll need to talk about something bigger." Nina's heart raced. A new door seemed to open. The months continued. Liam and Luca babbled, tried to walk, laughed at everything. Nina came home from work and was greeted by 2 tiny bolts of joy running toward her, and she breathed in relief. "I survived another day." Meanwhile, Maxwell lived in silent torment. Work increased, his father pressured him. The company expanded, but nothing occupied the part of his mind where Nina lived. Alive, insistent, impossible to forget. He tried to move on, but her perfume, her laugh, her shy gaze, everything came back. And somewhere between remorse and longing, something broke. He needed to talk to her, even if it meant hearing that she hated him. Sitting in his car outside her old building, even knowing she no longer lived there, he made a decision. Nina's phone rang on a Thursday as she chopped vegetables. Maxwell, she ignored it. It rang again. She ignored it. On the third call, she declined. Then came the message. Please answer. I need to talk to you. She deleted it. The next day, the phone rang even more. This number won't stop calling, Celia commented. No one important once he was, Nina replied. When the children were asleep, her phone vibrated for the 6th time. She sat on the couch, hands trembling, and answered. Hello? Nina, thank you for picking up. What do you want, Maxwell? I wanted to see you. See me? After everything? I know I don't deserve it, but I need to talk. About what? About us. About everything I ruined. The memories came like blades. Hospital nights, diapers at 3 a.m., the slicing loneliness. Maxwell, you disappointed me more than I can say. I know, please. Just one conversation. One chance to look at you without running away. She closed her eyes. Why now? Why when everything was finally falling into place again? But something, pain, pride, curiosity, wanted to know the reason. Where do you want to meet? She asked, going against every instinct. On the other end, his breath was unmistakable. Anywhere you want, just tell me the place. Nina took a long time to answer. The silence was thick. I'll think about it. And she hung up before he could say more. She sat there, holding her phone, looking at the twins sleeping. And she knew. The reunion was coming. 4 days had passed since Maxwell's missed call, and Nina tried to follow her routine as if nothing had happened. She worked, cared for the boys, helped Celia, reviewed reports. But whenever silence settled, the memory of him returned. The voice, the pleas, the unexpected sincerity, and the guilt he carried. She felt it, even from afar. On the 4th night, after putting Liam and Luca to sleep, Nina stood in the hallway with her phone in hand. Her heart beat too loudly. She took a deep breath and called. He answered on the first ring. Nina, thank you for calling. I don't have much time. Say what you want. I needed to hear you. What do you want from me? A brief silence. I want to explain. I want to look you in the eyes and take responsibility for everything I did wrong. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to apologize. The right way. Her chest tightened. The memory of abandonment was still an open scar. That won't change anything. I know, but I need to speak. If you'll let me. She looked toward the boys' room. 30 minutes. Tomorrow. Willow Cafe on 14th. I'll be there. The next day, Nina could barely concentrate. Margot noticed. Is everything okay? Personal things, she replied. At 3:30, she left, got changed, placed the boys in their stroller, and walked to the cafe. Every step whispered, you don't need him, but you need the truth. Willow Cafe smelled of cinnamon and warm light. A safe place. Maxwell was already there, fidgeting with his hands, tense, exhausted. When Nina crossed the street, he lifted his eyes and froze. She wasn't alone. 2 identical boys, round cheeks, dark hair, blue beanies, and the eyes, his eyes. The cafe disappeared for Maxwell. He stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. Nina, my God, they're my sons, she answered. He brought a hand to his mouth, staggering. He stepped closer slowly as if approaching something sacred. They're perfect. Liam blinked, and Maxwell nearly lost his breath. Luca grumbled, turning his face away, exactly like Maxwell did when waking up. How old? 1 year and 8 months. He closed his eyes, swallowing the truth. I missed everything. The first smile, the first step. God. He looked at her, devastated. Why didn't you tell me they were twins? Nina let out a bitter laugh. Are you seriously asking me that? He had no response. When I told you I was pregnant, you laughed. You called it a mistake. You offered money. You turned your back on me. His tears surfaced. Nina, I'm sorry. Don't do that. She raised a hand. How you want to apologize to ease your guilt. I raised both alone. I don't need you anymore. Maxwell trembled. I was being manipulated. My father threatened me. He said I'd lose everything if I claimed you. He said you were trying to trap me. I was weak. I believed him. And you left me, she said firmly. Pregnant, alone, terrified. I know. I hate myself for it. I'm not here to listen to your self-loathing. I'm here because you insisted. And because my sons have the right to know who you are, someday when I think they should. He nearly sank to his knees. Nina, please, I want to be part of their lives. She took a steady breath. I haven't decided anything yet. You will not pressure me. You will wait, and you will prove, with actions, not words, that you are no longer the man who ran away. I'll wait as long as it takes. For them, and for you too. Nina looked away. For the first time in a long time, the wound reopened and began to heal at the same time. But forgiveness, she didn't know if she could reach that far. What you broke will not be rebuilt in a day, she said. Or maybe ever. He swallowed like he was swallowing shards of glass. I know. Nina adjusted the stroller. I'll think about it. That's all I can offer. Maxwell nodded, destroyed, but hopeful. As she walked away, pushing the boys, he finally understood. The greatest punishment of his life was also his only chance at redemption. Sunday dawned quiet, with golden light slipping through the curtains. It was the only day of the week when Nina didn't have to rush. The day followed the twins' rhythm. Liam woke first, babbling. Luca came after, dragging his little blue blanket. Good morning, my loves, Nina whispered. Mama, Liam murmured. Mum, Luca repeated. They spent the morning on the rug, stacking blocks, knocking them down, laughing endlessly. Nina laughed along. Liam, great job. Hey, Luca, that's not for eating. For hours, everything was light, simple, perfect, and Nina managed to forget Maxwell, though only for a little while. Her friends arrived around noon with food and affectionate chaos. Boys, your aunties are here, Bree announced. Tasha scooped Liam up. They get cuter every day. But they noticed something in Nina's eyes. What happened? Bree asked. Nina took a breath. I saw Maxwell yesterday. Both froze. What? Tasha nearly fell onto the sofa. And you brought the boys? Bree's eyes widened. Nina told them everything. The meeting, his shock, his tears, his explanations, his plea to be part of the boys' lives. When she finished, Tasha exhaled. Girl, that's hard. I don't know if I could forgive that. He was cruel. Bree nodded. But they're his kids. Sooner or later he'll want to be around. And maybe it's not right to block that forever. Nina looked at the twins playing on the floor. I'm afraid of letting him in and getting hurt again. Then let him in for them, Bree suggested. Only when you decide. Tasha added, and if he messes up, you kick him out. Nina laughed, tense. Easy for you two to say. Of course, Tasha replied. We specialize in giving opinions on chaos. On Monday, Nina woke tired but lighter. She made coffee, cut fruit, opened the curtains. Today, Mommy goes in later, she told the boys. They ate breakfast together and then walked around the block. Look at the bird, Liam. That's it, Luca. Call him. At 8:30, Donna Celia arrived. Good morning, my daughter, she said. Nina sank into a chair. Celia, I don't know what to do. It's about their father, isn't it? Nina nodded. He wants to get close. He says he's changed. Celia sighed. Men can be very foolish, but some learn, and they change. Nina felt her eyes burn. I still love him, but I also hate what he did. Then don't decide with love, Celia advised. Decide with wisdom. At work, Nina buried herself in spreadsheets, trying not to think. But late in the afternoon, her phone buzzed. Maxwell. She hesitated and answered. I wanted to know how you're all doing, he said. The plural hit her. We're fine, but I still need time. I understand, but please, let me see them. I want to make up for lost time. Nina took a slow breath, 3 times a week. Short visits at my house with me present. Maxwell almost sobbed with relief. Thank you, Nina. I'll honor every minute. The visits began 2 weeks later. Maxwell arrived with toys, clothes, books. He sat on the rug, letting the boys explore his face, his hands. Liam laughed easily. Luca tugged at his hair, fascinated. After a month, Maxwell cried when he heard Papa for the first time. I don't deserve this, he murmured, kissing his son's forehead, but I'll do everything to deserve it. And Nina watched. She saw effort, saw change, saw truth. Little by little, without meaning to, the ice inside her began to melt. Not for Maxwell, but for the boys. Because now, they had a father who seemed willing to fight to become better. Summer arrived in Denver like a slow blessing, warming the sidewalks and filling the parks with life. For Nina, that summer tasted like beginning again. Careful steps, but steady ones. It was Saturday, the first in weeks when she didn't feel the weight of indecision in her chest. Sunlight gilded the living room floor while Liam and Luca played with colorful blocks. So grown, so alive, so full of energy. Liam was the fearless one, Luca, the observer. They ran around the room with laughter that filled everything. Nina prepared oatmeal in the kitchen, hair tied up loosely, a quiet peace in her eyes. Mama, Liam called. Mama, Luca echoed. hugging her leg. She crouched down and held them tight, finding in their arms her purpose, her strength, her life. After breakfast, she dressed the twins and took them to the park. Sunlight filtered through the trees, creating dancing shadows. The children chased bubbles, stumbling and laughing. Nina pushed the stroller, silently grateful for the path, the strength, the privilege of being their mother. She still didn't know how to define what she felt for Maxwell, but she knew there was light now. There was a future. His visits had become part of the routine, first unexpected, then inevitable. 4 times a week he played with the boys on the living room floor, built towers that Luca knocked down, chased Liam around. He watched his sons like someone witnessing a miracle. And Nina watched from a distance, allowing neither too much nor too little. That afternoon, she decided to take the boys to the park again for a small picnic. The sky was clear, the clouds soft. She laid a blanket by the trees and offered apple slices. "No," Liam protested, pointing to the playground. "Pway," Luca tried to say. Nina laughed. As she fed them, she sensed someone approaching. A shadow fell across the blanket. "May I?" Maxwell asked, removing his sunglasses. She didn't invite him, but she didn't ask him to leave either. She simply nodded. Maxwell sat carefully, as if unsure he deserved to be there at all. The twins had no doubts. "Papa," Liam called. "Pa," Luca echoed. Maxwell's expression melted. He scooped them into his arms, the 3 of them wrapped in an embrace too intense for words. Nina felt her heart falter. "They're everything to me," Maxwell said, looking at his sons. "I wish I had been here from the beginning." Nina didn't answer, but she didn't close any door. They spent the afternoon together. Maxwell helped Liam on the slide, pushed Luca on the swing, ran across the grass with his tie shoved in his pocket and his sleeves rolled up. A millionaire who didn't know how to play like that until he learned, because he wanted to, because he needed to, because he loved. Nina watched it all. She saw him fall backward onto the grass, laughing like he never had before, free from his father, from pressure, from himself. The twins climbed onto him, knocking him down, and Nina felt warmth bloom in her chest. For the first time, she didn't fight it. When the sun began to set, she gathered the blanket. The boys were exhausted, cheeks flushed. "Can I carry one of them to the car?" Maxwell offered. Nina hesitated. "You can take Luca." He held the boy with such natural ease that it hurt to realize the father he could have been, and the father he was perhaps becoming. They walked together toward the sidewalk in silence. A new silence, one that didn't hurt. Near her house, Maxwell stopped. "Nina, I know I don't deserve anything, but if someday you think you can let me try again, I'll be here. For you, for the boys, for what we could have been and maybe still can be." She looked at him for a long moment. For the first time, she didn't see the man who hurt her, but the man trying to heal. "I'm not promising anything," she said, "but I see your effort, and that's already a beginning." He smiled, small, vulnerable. Something inside Nina shifted. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was hope, the kind that grows slowly, that builds, that's worth waiting for. As she watched him walk away in the pink evening light, she looked at her children. Peaceful eyes, trusting eyes. They knew nothing of the past, but they knew everything about the present. And in that moment, Nina realized forgiveness doesn't happen all at once. It grows slowly, from care, from time, from change. It wasn't about forgetting or going back. It was about moving forward with the wounds, but also with the courage to believe that some pains don't come to destroy, but to transform. When she closed the door behind her, a new thought, almost timid, almost frightening, nested inside her. Maybe it wasn't the end. Maybe it was only the beginning of something different, something truer, more human, stronger, something she didn't yet know how to name, but she knew how to feel. And before you go, tell me in the comments, do you think Nina should give Maxwell another chance or move on with her sons? I really want to know your opinion. Leave your comment below. Give this video a like. It helps the channel so much. And subscribe to follow the next emotional stories here on the channel. See you in the next story. I'll be waiting for you there.